Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Michi Makes Up. Today we're going to take a dedicated look at the new Dior Quint Mirage. Mirage was released alongside Dune as part of Dior's summer collection. And in my initial review video, we took a close look at Dior's Dune. I also created a look using this palette. We did do swatches for both Quints and compare them against similar shades from other brands. If you haven't seen my video on Dune and swatches for both Quints, I will put a link above and also at the end of the video. Mirage is what I used on my eyes and cheeks, and also as a contour shade on my face today. I think of the two palettes, this one is probably more friendly for all over the face, kind of multi-use, but I will give you more of my summarized thoughts at the end, especially if you have been on the fence about getting one of the two or whether you want to get either of them, or maybe both. So I'll help you, I'll try to help you with that at the end and give you my final recommendations there. So why don't we go ahead with the swatches of Mirage, and you will see, because I also compared Mirage against the new Burberry Runway palette, and I have that right here. Not a lot of similarities actually, but they could be part of the same family. And in fact, between these two Quints, Mirage has the warmer undertones than Dune. Dune next to Mirage looks cooler, and actually next to the Burberry palette, it just looks cooler. So here we are. And these are the 4 shades on the Quint. The 5th shade in the center I have on my thumb, so let's get that on my arm. All of the shades except these 3 shades, the center and the bottom 2, are of a satin finish. And the top 2 shades have more of a glittery finish. And I like to go in to give you guys a second application so you can see how the color builds. And so the product is definitely buildable, which is nice. But if you enjoy soft color payoff, kind of like an effortlessness with your makeup, this actually might be the perfect Quint. So you can see it's definitely buildable. And the center shade as well. It's still pretty soft overall, especially when you compare to some of the kind of all-season Dior Quints. So these definitely have a lighter color payoff. It's like more airy or wispy. If you are interested in the effortlessness of makeup, or what you could do with a very light payoff, this actually might be the Quint for you. It reminds me of SUQQU, so I know I did this comparison in my Dune video, but I'm going to take it out again. The shades here are a lot cooler than what we have on Mirage, but I want to show you the payoff comparison. From SUQQU's Quad, we have a glittery shade here, and then we have a kind of satin matte, and then a satin shade, a metallic shade. So finish-wise is a little bit different since there is actually like a matte, but the satin quality of most of the shadows here, except for this glittery shade, you'll find that there's some similarities. So it's just that light payoff in color. And this brown here, this is a second application, does look much deeper than the brown from Dior. And Dior, I also have 2 applications, so that really gives you a sense of how soft the Dior shades are. I will add one more application. application on the gold. One more for the matte shade. I would say these shades are kind of similar to the satin matte, where you could build upon it, but it's not gonna, the shades are not gonna immediately become, you know, that much more intense because it is so light. It's pigmented, but the payoff's just lighter. The shades are actually really easy to work with. You'll see in my demo here, very quick to put together this look, but there's still dimensions and interest. I did end up using all 5 shades from this quint, but you don't have to. From the instructions printed on all of Dior's Quint's boxes, and it's this right here, they suggest if you want an intense look, use the bottom 3 shades. And if you want a lighter look, use the top 2 plus the middle shade. That is consistent for all of their quints, but I think with something like this, you're never gonna get too intense of a look. So if that's something that interests you, definitely stick around for the demo. I'm going to, because we're at it, let's just quickly swatch Dune and you guys can see what it looks like against Mirage. These are all the shades of Dune. They all have a glittery finish. So the finish is really different from Mirage, and you'll see here the color payoff is even lighter. And I'll go back in for a second application, and you can build upon it. This is a very, very light shade. So these two, can't really build on it too much. The others you can. It's buildable, but what you get is still just very light. And I think this is a bit of a departure from the Dior Quints we've been seeing. They released Pink Sakura, Wild Brown, and one other spring quint. I forget the name. It's a lot different from those. These are pretty fun, I think. And because it's limited edition, I suppose they just want to do something a lot different from what they have in their regular roster and what we saw with the spring releases. Let's head on to the demo. I'll see you guys at the end. I had completed the look on both eyes, looked up and realized that somehow, I think it was a glitch, my camera stopped filming. So I took everything off of my right eye and I'm gonna put it back on and walk you guys through the steps. First, we're going to take this deepest shade here, and I'm placing that right above the lash line. And if you prefer to have a deeper shade or a more intense application of the shade, you can actually build on it. Then taking this red shade here, we're adding that right on top of that brown shade we were just working with. Then we're taking this center shade here. It reminds me of Cantaloupe. I feel like it's that kind of orangey brown, but it's also kind of pastel-like. It's nice and light. And then this is the step that I didn't do on my left eye, and then I realized the camera stopped filming. So you can see here on both sides, you've got kind of like a satin finish, and I think it looks beautiful the way it is now. But for the sake of using all of the shades for today's demo, I'm actually gonna go in with my finger to this shade here. It is more reflective and shimmery than the two in the bottom, as well as the center shade here. So I'm actually placing that on the center of the lid. and this is with 2 applications, but you can see up close side by side, you can already see this has more of like a shimmery quality, more so than the left eye. And actually, I think it adds a nice subtle dimension to the look. Then taking this light pink shade, I'm adding that to the inner corners. I'm going to put on concealer foundation, then we'll come back for the rest. For under the eyes, I'd like to go back into this pink shade here and just put that pretty generously. Initially, I thought putting this pink on the inner corner will lighten things up and, will nicely tie together with the look above. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, we can just add it pretty generously on the lower lash line, and I think it would still tie the look together pretty well. For blush, I'm going to go into this pink shade here, and I'm placing that sort of all over this area here. It's a very subtle pink shade, but it gives this really nice sheen that does reflect both kind of pink and orangey. So pretty. I had actually done the same thing or used the shade for my cheeks in the Dune video. I ended up adding a few more shades to it, which we might still do, but I just want to show you guys the effect. Now I think I'm going to go back into the Dune Quint, take this here and then place that on top, because it will give me more color, which is what I'm going for. I love this kind of duochrome, nice highlight blush, but I also want a little bit more color on my cheeks, because this is supposed to be a kind of sun-kissed, sand, summer-inspired collection. I think we got our color here. Because with these quints, you can use these as blush, but also bronzer. I like to try using one of these shades here as a bronzer, or a contour, I guess I should say. I do think perhaps this might be too glittery, and this is from Dune. And then this shade here from Mirage might be a little bit too glittery, which leaves us with just this shade. So I'm going to try that as my contour, and I'm going to try to not go overboard here, but we will see. Yeah, I've got good color. I'm adding some of that as a highlight here. For lips, I'm taking SUQQU's Comfort Lip Fluid Fog, so this is in a matte finish. This is in the shade Harutsumi, and this kind of brown pinky shade is what makes me think it'll tie together all really nicely. This is the finished look. I was pleasantly surprised by how easy it was to put together this look. And I just love how the shades look on my cheeks as well. This shade here gives you that kind of pinky, orangey, sun-kissed glow. It just falls right with the theme of the collection. It doesn't have enough pigmentation to be a blush, but it certainly is like the perfect, really great base that you could have if you want a glowing look. A base, and then you apply your preferred blush color. If you have both Quints, you can certainly go into this shade here. You might even be able to use this shade too, and that could be your blush that you put on top. And I do love this shade as well. So I think combined, I have everything I need for eyes, blush, and as like a contour or bronzer. I use this shade here as a bronzer, and it was deep enough for my skin tone. I do think if you have a lighter skin tone, you might be able to use this shade, although it will be more glittery. If nothing else, you might be able to use it as a bronzer all over, and it'll give you a glow, of course, because it is glittery. If you've tried this with your Mirage palette, please let me know how that turned out. So now for the part, which palette do I recommend? If you want this kind of satiny, or you like the satin finish, then that's easy. It's gonna be Mirage. Mirage is the one that I also, these two shades, any of these two shades, you could use it as your base or your highlight. And I use this as a contour, but I think if you have deeper skin tone than me, you could build up this shade and it could still work for you as a contour. I probably wouldn't use it as a bronzer, as an all-over bronzer for me. I think it is a little bit too deep. If you are completely enamored by how glittery each of these shades look, and definitely go watch my Dior Dune video, because then you really get a feel for it, since I use it to create a look, then this is the one. So I think in terms of versatility, the two are about the same. You can use this shade as a blush, you can use this shade here as your highlight, you can obviously use this shade here too. This is cooler and this is warmer, so it comes down to which finish you prefer, and if you want a warm palette or a cooler palette. And if you also have been thinking of the Burberry palette, this recently became available in the States and sold out extremely quickly. I do think they will restock it. There's just no timeline. If you felt like you've missed this and you're still interested in the Dior Quints, then I would get Mirage. Because this is warmer, it more closely resembles what you might get from this palette. They're not the same. For this review video, I did comparisons, so I'll also have a link above. They're not the same, but they're almost like cousins. Yeah, that's how I would label them. They're kind of cousins of each other. So those are my thoughts on the summer Dior collection with the two Quints. I enjoy both. I see myself, when there's a time where we can take trips again, or I'm going on a business trip, I see myself taking these two palettes and know that I'll have everything I need on my face, except for lipstick, but everything else I have in these two Quints, and it's going to be light packing for me. Let me know below if I managed to convince you towards Mirage, but obviously it always comes down to which palette do you keep going back to? Which one can you not keep your eyes off of? That's probably the one that you'll be the most happy with. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you again very soon. Hope you have a great start to your week. Bye.